From out of the darkness, I call forth light. Welcome to the Draig Moot. Saturday, June 17th. Today's topic is sea, land, and sky. And why did we select those? Well, the concepts themselves are very ancient. They're imbued in a lot of the poetry of the Celtic peoples, in their stories and their tales. Originally, I wanted to get away from the four-element system. I felt it had been done to death, basically, even dragging it all the way back to Egypt. And everybody was trying to shoehorn everything into those four elements. They even tried to shoehorn the five-element Oriental system into the four elements. That was years ago. I really don't know what the current philosophy on that is. My headphones are in an odd spot. Either that or my hair's growing too fast. Okay, we look at sea, land, and sky. And we refer to them as dragons. Not just your typical garden variety dragon. These are primal dragons. By primal, I mean all the way back to the beginning of time type of energies or currents. In this regard, when we say the dragon of sea, we were referring to more than just the oceans on this world. We're referring to the flow, the depth, the darkness, the mystery, the isolation. Tiamat was referred to as a dragon of sea. I believe salt water, but I could be wrong on that. And the Leviathan was also considered to be a dragon of sea. And in the Nordic traditions, I will not even attempt to pronounce the name of their giant world worm that circles the world through the oceans, or circles the oceans. I'm sure my wife could pronounce that name easily. She's very good with things like that. I stick to the simpler terms. Big worm. And worm is a form of dragon in some languages. Or so I've read. So anyway, we have the dragon of sea, which in the format in which we use it, it represents the realm of the past. The ancestors, the dead in some aspects, those things that are forgotten but still exist. And we go into many layers of meaning. Yes, I know. seeing a word for 20 years and then hearing it for the first time, sometimes it's like, what? I have to look up a lot of terms on the, I Google them to see how they're supposed to be pronounced. Listen to the enunciation clips that they have on some of the terms. We're actually still working on the proper enunciation for Draig, and we think it's closer to Draig, Shahe, Draig Shahe. But I still haven't quite got that one down. Until I do, I'll keep saying Draig. So next to the dragon of sea, we have the dragon of land. Land in this particular layout represents foundation and the present. The present as in this exact present moment. It's a hard concept to communicate. The old term "be here now" seems to be the closest reference that I could give if I was trying to put it in as simple as terms as possible. And after the dragon of land, we have the dragon of sky, which is the realm of the future. And that encompasses everything to come. We also give dominion in that to deities, if you believe in deities. I'm not even going to try to... The records that supposedly Casey accessed to find out what's coming in the future, and other mystics have attempted to touch upon. I'm going to try to avoid words I can't think of the enunciation completely off the top of my head. By using the dragons of sea, land, and sky, when we call forth our circle, we're attempting to expand the circle from what I consider to be a mono bubble into a multidimensional junction, where you have the opportunity to access information from the past and from the future more easily than you would if you were doing it. Yes, Akashic records, AKASHIC. And I know I just slaughtered that term, and I apologize to anybody who actually knows how to pronounce it. And why do we want to access different realms? Well, it's like you can look at a poster, or you can be in the poster. In one aspect, we're looking at the poster. Our magic can sometimes feel flat. When you tap into the dragon energies, the primal dragon energies, the magic becomes more dimensional. Sometimes the dimensions produce results you don't quite expect, but that's a chance you take with any working. Aleister Crowley said that magic is the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. And I acquired that perspective early in my studies, and I found it's very applicable across the board as far as what magic means. Yeah, I have I have no idea either on how that's actually pronounced. It's one of those words, if I thought I was going to be using it, I would have looked it up earlier. Yes, my cigarettes keep going out. So when you choose to step into the circle and practice magic, you are saying to the universe that you take responsibility for all your actions, regardless of the outcome. Because there is no... Anytime you practice magic, there's a coin to pay, one way or the other. Whether it's the offerings you bring or something that's taken later in payment. There just is no free lunch when it comes to magic. Yes, I'm glancing down at my book to see what I wrote. Okay, let's touch on each of these dragons independently. And I have visuals. Yes, we're going to talk about the Dragon of Sea first. Okay, in my book I say that the Dragon of Sea represents archetype primal forces like chaos and order. I hope that doesn't make anybody seasick. Having spent very many years on the ocean, it doesn't bother me like it might some who are not used to the constant motion. If you choose to set up an ancestral altar, that you're tapping into the current of the Dragon of Sea, or the realm of the past. You're trying to establish a line of communication with someone who is no longer in this world. Why would you want to do that? Well, you may just miss them. You might want to be comforted by the thoughts of them, and thinking of them will invoke memories and hopefully all happy. You could also connect with your ancestors by dream working, seeking to get advice on something that's become a challenge to you as far as making a decision or moving forward. So far it's just the two of us. I probably didn't get this advertised as well as I should have. In case nobody's ever noticed, advertising is not my strong suit. So on the altar, as we covered in an earlier episode of the Draig Moot, that's good to hear. I place it on the altar to my left. It's a feminine aspect. I see the ocean as a mother force, personally. Well, I'm glad you appreciate the recordings. I'm trying to learn how to edit out more of the startup waiting. So hopefully the final version of this will be a little more smooth. Since I know personally watching YouTube's videos, I don't particularly like the first 10-15 minutes of some other people's videos, and I still see no reason why I can't clip that out. So from the realm of sea, the dragon of sea, we move to the dragon of land. And like I said before, land represents the present, and the present in the finite aspect is to be here now, to be present, to be aware of your surroundings, to be conscious of what's coming and going on various levels. I'm a firm believer that you attract what you project. If you go out in the morning in a bad mood, you're going to be attracting negative things to you. If you go out in a positive mood, hopefully you'll attract positive things to you. We've all sat in a room where someone can walk in and either with a smile or a word, they can change the whole atmosphere of the room. And in many ways, it's learning how to be that aspect, to be able to change the vibration around you, to move you forward towards your goals. Because that's, in my opinion, that's what magic's all about, reaching goals. Whether it's something you want on a material plane or something you want on a spiritual plane. We're constantly moving forward towards that goal, or at least I hope we're moving forward towards the goal. Sometimes it doesn't seem like it, but in the long run, that's where we're headed. Which brings us to another topic that one's a little jumpier than the waves. I pulled these down relatively quickly last night, so they're as they came. I didn't edit them at all. I'm referring to the background visual. So by being here now, being in the present, with all the things that we do, you can be more attentive, especially when it comes to magic workings. You need to be very present in the present. If you're daydreaming about what you're going to be doing tomorrow or the next day, you're not really in the present. You're existing in the realm of the sky or the future. If you're sitting there thinking about all the should-haves, could-haves, and would-haves that you didn't do in the past, you're not living in the present. You're living in the past. You're mentally repeating the same mistakes or choices over and over again. I can't say they're mistakes. They might not have been a mistake at the time. And there's my automated plug for the book. My daughter rigged those in so they just show up by themselves on the chat, which you can't see in the YouTube video. So moving on from the realm of the land, or the present, we go to the realm of the sky, or the dragon. Clouds have always fascinated me. You can see shapes, even without using Photoshop, forming in them. Most fascinating clouds I ever witnessed were when I was stationed in Guam, and I would look out and the storms would roll in, and it looked like there was actual dragons up there battling with the lightning flying around them before they got close to the land. So we have the realm of the sky, which is the future. I just skipped through a whole bunch of things. We'll come back to them. Now, if you believe in deities, this is where the deities dwell, in the future. It's not saying they're not in the present and they don't exist in the past. It's that if they are real, and I leave that to each person to interpret how they choose, they would be dwelling in the future, because we would be moving towards them, not away from them or through them, even though we would want to connect with them in the present or the realm of the land, and we can see where their fingerprints have touched on our lives or other events in the past in the realm of the sea. And so much of this sounds like I'm rambling. This talking to a camera is new to me. I'm used to a little more interaction with people when I do these things. So this is all new with no eye contact. And I have trouble looking up at the camera, in case you haven't noticed. Our subconscious mind has no concept of time. And many people, in the first moments right after they wake up, have that timeless feeling. And with training, you can, like a fisherman, toss out your line to see what's coming your way during the next day or so. Yes, chatty is nice but delayed. And it's not like real conversations. I completely agree. It's hard to have a conversation when what I say and you respond to, I may not even remember what I said. During the first attempt we had the lag was so long that by the time one of the people responded, I didn't know what they were talking about. My daughter happened to clue me in. I think she's sleeping. She was streaming last night. So, if you cast out your line, you can pull in a sense of what the day's coming. Some people have channeled this into the casting of cards or runes, pulling of cards, in hopes of trying to get a hint. There was a period of time when I was on one of the ships I was on. I spent, probably 6 months trying to use the I Ching for this very purpose, but most of the time the castings only made sense in hindsight. I could look back a day or two later at what it had said, and sure enough, the things it was pointing at were there, but as far as being able to have foreknowledge of what was coming, it was extremely difficult. Needless to say, I don't practice the I Ching very much anymore. Though I always found it fascinating that the Chinese philosophers had invented binary language long before computers were invented, since all it is lines and broken lines, which are the equivalent of ones and zeros, or zeros and ones, depending on how you want to interpret those. Okay, we're talking about the Dragon of Sky. Yeah, I even talk about that in the book. So I learned to use the tarot, which gave me a little bit more of a clue of what was coming. I like tarot cards because when I'm in the right headspace, I can feel what they're saying. But it took me a long time to be able to do readings for other people, because I had to learn that I didn't need to understand the message, because the message wasn't for me. What I saw and what I felt needed to be communicated with the tarot cards was for the person I was doing the reading for, not for me. And many times when I watch readers on YouTube or at psychic fairs, I feel that they're putting their interpretation of what they think the person should hear on the cards more than what the cards are saying to that person, if that makes any sense at all. If you don't read the tarot cards, you do use tarot cards. That's good. If you don't use tarot cards, that might not have any meaning to you at all. Some people like the runes because it's simple and to the point, so to speak, even though each of the runes is layered with meaning upon meaning, and it can be as complex a system as you want to make it, which is true of any system. Oracle cards are very popular right now because they cater to particular mindsets with different archetype characters. They're trying to impart their understanding of that particular aspect, which they may or may not feel was covered in more traditional systems. I struggled through most of what I wanted to say. Sometimes my brain jumps ahead of my mouth. And other times my mouth takes off without my brain. Usually it's my mouth that's ahead of my brain, which gets me in a lot of trouble sometimes. And that takes us back to the realm of land, where you need to be present, especially when speaking. Though over the years I have learned to, for the most part, keep my mouth in check when it comes to things like my job. Don't want to tell the boss what he really thinks. You use the oracle cards along with your tarot for additional insight, but mostly rely on your tarot cards. 20-some years ago, I bought an oracle that's called I want to say the Goddess Oracle. They're not even cards. They were they look like clay stamped figurines. Some of them are animals. A lot of them are goddesses. But I got it because I didn't know it, and I chose not to delve into it, so that when I needed clarity, I could draw one of those and turn to the book and read what the book was saying, and let the words from the description jump out at me, and in that way I could get insight that I wasn't intentionally coloring to get the meaning I wanted, if that makes sense. On my list of things to do in the future is to actually cover those in a video, but like everything, I have to have the time to do it, and time sometimes can be a precious commodity, even though time is an illusion. We know time's an illusion because sometimes the drive to work only takes 3 minutes, and other days it takes 10. It depends on what state of mind you're in. Yes, it's always good to get that second opinion from the oracle cards. We're actually waiting for another deck to be delivered. We just acquired a number of decks of oracle cards in the last few days, where if you're on the Draig Dragon Magic list on Facebook, you'll get a chance to see them as they choose to present themselves. And of course, they all have a dragon theme. What else would you put on a dragon magic group? Or a dragon theme for the most part. And I thought I had that turned down and I could still hear it. I have Magic of the Tarot covered under the Dragon of Sky. Now we're going to spin off on a little sidetrack here. I'm glad you like the artwork in the cards. Hopefully they will present themselves, so we get a variety of different ones. I like the Dragon Fae ones are very interesting since majority. It was odd that that one came up as the first card out of that deck, because the majority of them are Fae and not dragons to speak of. And I'm just touching the highlights of the meanings for the what I'm posting, since I don't want to put out a lot of information. I'd rather just put out enough to give people something to think about. Where I find if you go on for 3 paragraphs about a card, you either don't grasp what they're actually trying to tell you, or you get lost in the words. A sea of words almost. Okay, off on our tangent. Tarot cards can be used for magic. I think I cover that a couple places in the book. They can also be used for reading people. There's a system where you take someone's birth date, break it down to a number that is 22 or lower, and 22 equaling 0, the Fool. And you can actually dry read a person's personality and be 80 to 90% accurate. But it does require to have a good knowledge of the major arcana and what each of those cards means at its heart. Because based on this system, you are born with a life lesson, basically. And if your cards fall, for example, you got it down to 22. Okay, the Fool. That would be your life lesson. But 2 and 2 equals 4, so a shadow lesson that goes along with it is also influencing what you chose to experience during this incarnation. And I know I'm injecting my philosophy into the topic when I say that. I kind of see life as a progression of steps towards a higher plane of existence. And each incarnation we choose to take on, we set our goals before we manifest on the physical plane, and hopefully we move towards those goals. Now with the Fool and the Emperor, Emperor's number 4. On one hand, the life lesson is to not take things as serious as a lot of people around you. Kind of go through life with I don't care attitude. But then with the shadow lesson of the Emperor, who is very in charge and in control, it's almost like a yin-yang effect. You're being pulled in both directions, so you need to find that middle ground, which is probably what your life lesson is all about. Because people that tend to have that alignment, the majority of the time they are very carefree, and then they will, at the snap of your fingers, switch to this person that is very orderly and everything has to be in a certain spot, and it's like almost a different person. But in reality it isn't. It's the same person. They're just making a major swing from one side to the other because they haven't found that balance point where everything can be in its spot and they can still be carefree about it. There's the old saying about my desk looked like a mess, but don't move anything because I know where everything is. It's because it's in an order, but it's not an order that anybody else would recognize as such. And that's just one example. Now, on top of that, you take the current year and your birthday, and you add those together, and that gives you an indication of what you're dealing with that particular year. For example, if they added up to 9, you would be going through a year of the hermit, where you would find yourself withdrawing from things that the year before you were very active in. You might have bouts of unplugging from the internet just to get away from people. And coffee is not as lubricating as apple cider. But it's been a long day, so I figured it was safer to do coffee. I don't need to be falling asleep while I'm talking. Now, when you have a life lesson of, like the hermit or anything, say your birthday is in July. You'll begin experiencing some of that in June, late May even, depending on where your birthday lands. But it'll be strongest 6 months away from your birthday. That's where you reach the peak of the influence of that particular aspect. And then after that, it'll ease up and you'll go back and start moving towards the next yearly influence. I believe in overlaps and peak points when it comes to cycles, influences. For example, I'm born on April 20th, which 3 years out of 4 is in Aries. And on the 4th year, it's a Taurus. All because of a leap year. So, does that make me 3/4 Aries and 1/4 Taurus? Not really. Granted, I chose to be born a Taurus because my mother said she was in labor for a while before I decided to pop up. Pop out, pop out. And it just happened to be a leap year. So that pushed the zodiac slightly in my favor. Now, I'm at the cusp at the beginning of Taurus. That doesn't mean that, okay, there's a line that you're an Aries here and a Taurus there. I'm a Taurus with a lot of Aryan traits. If you want to find a true Taurian, you need to go halfway through the cycle of Taurus, where it peaks. Now, that person, 14 days away from, or 15 days away from me, which would be around May 5th, in that time frame, they're going to be very Taurian because they're born right in the center of the influence of Taurus. And then as you go into later May, or the rest of May, you start picking up the Gemini aspects of the upcoming sign. So it's not like black and white between the signs. There's an overlap. It's like when you shine a red light and a green light. Red light and green light. Okay, if you shine two lights together, you get that spot where the lights overlap. And if you're using colored lights or gel filters, you can create a third color. I don't know why I picked red and green, because that does not create blue. Blue's the third color of the spectrum. Red and green would produce a shade of white, I believe. Could be wrong. It's been 30 years since I learned color theory with light. And like all things in my brain, they get filed away and forgotten. For magic with tarot cards, using a simple 3-card spread works best, in my opinion. You can get much more elaborate. I've attempted some things. My favorite is to take a crystal and a candle, and you select a card that represents where you're at, what you see as your obstacle. You select, and that would go into the left hand or first position. Then you select a card that represents your goal, what you want to achieve, and that would go into the right hand or third position. And then you select a card that you think is what you need to attract to achieve your goal. And you place that in the second or middle position. And then use a candle, incense, and charge the crystal with the energy of the center card, basically. And once you've worked your magic on whatever system you choose to use, you carry the crystal around with you. And hopefully then it will influence events that are being attracted towards you. Maybe I should try that with lottery tickets. I don't know if that would work or not. Everybody wants to win the lottery. But like they say, the goddess gives you what you need, not necessarily what you want. So after sea, land, and sky, that brings us to the sacred flame. Sacred flame. Now, some people would say, okay, you got all 4 elements there, but this is more than an element. Yeah, I haven't been that lucky either with the lottery. We keep trying, but no joy. My throat's been a little bit rough today. We've had a lot of rain, and the Texas sage is just in bloom, and the pollen is just tearing me apart. Aleister Crowley, or Uncle Al as I like to call him, said that every man and every woman is a star. Carl Sagan said the cosmos is within us. We are made of star stuff. We are a way for the universe to know itself. And your allergies got better since leaving Texas. I can think of a lot of things that get better if you leave Texas. But I'm stuck here for a while longer. It's the worst part about getting a halfway decent job. You don't want to walk away from it and start all over. Yeah. Very true. I've got 9 in well, I'll be 10 years in October with this job. And I've finally gotten into a position that I'm comfortable with for the most part. Though it can be trying when you get called the night before on your your day off to say, hey, can you come to work at 4 a.m. in the morning? And you're in a position where, well, I like my job, so I guess I'll say yes. But it was something that needed to be done, and it was better that I did it instead of leaving it for someone else to not catch some of the mistakes that have been taking place. Okay, no, it wasn't fun. But I get Monday off, so that it works itself out. I'll be able to take care of some things I can't do on the weekend. Hopefully. The sacred flame represents the concepts of creation. We refer to it as fire and ice, which is a poetic twist to fire and frost, I think, or frost and fire from the northern traditions, so to speak. Norse traditions. But it's the idea that everything exists in one of two states, either stable or fluid, or in the case of flame, burning. Active, passive, the list goes on. The sacred flame represents in its purest sense what the ancient Chinese philosophers referred to as the yin and yang. You have the wax, which is, in this case, solid. If you were using an oil lamp, you would have the oil, which is still, even though it's a fluid, it's not active until the fire touches it, and then it becomes a flame. And in both of these cases, the interaction between the two create light, or that inner star. So it's from the sacred flame that we see the connection, that we're connected to everything. All things are created from the same stardust. And in magic, we can utilize these lines of connection to influence events around us, if we choose to do so. If you believe in the dragons can believe in you. And thank you for being here.